I accidentally got this experience of working remotely while actually not working remotely. We took all the ethos of open source community, which is a lot of remote work, a lot of asynchronous communication. We have not diversified, not because we don't like those languages, it's just that probably I like Ruby on Rails a bit too much. That kind of feedback we can give only if we are working with a client where we have this high trust environment. So the thing that is the most important to me is sustainability. These days you will see a lot of companies who are coming, new companies that come up, startups are easy. What is harder is actually staying in the business. I feel like that's why a lot of people are in a rush to make, I'm 3x founder, 4x founder. I will die as a 1x founder. There is no doubt about it. I am not in a hurry to sell BigBinary or to get rid of BigBinary. So because I don't make compromises on things, and I'm not saying that I'm a difficult person to work with, but there are some core principles on which I don't compromise at all. Then what happens is that every day, in fact now that BigBinary is on 13th year, it will be cliche, but actually it's not cliche. I'm more excited about BigBinary today than I was ever in its history. In fact, a good company is a company where the company has low risk. And if the company has a lot of, and it's a risk to the company that the company is so much dependent on the charisma of a particular person.
This is the Business Philosopher Within You podcast. I'm your host, Bhavesh Naik. Have you ever wondered if it was possible to grow a scalable business with a highly skilled workforce that is entirely remote from the get-go? If you have, I have a very special treat for you. Neeraj Singh is the founder and CEO of BigBinary, a software development agency that builds web and mobile applications. Since its inception in 2011, BigBinary has been remote, and its 125 plus team members are spread all across India and USA. In 2020, BigBinary was listed in Inc. 5000 index of fastest growing private companies in the US, third time in a row. BigBinary has recently ventured into building a number of products under the umbrella of Neeto.com. That's Neeto.com. I'm pleased to have you on this podcast, Neeraj.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Neeraj, 2011. That was the time when the vast majority of the world population had no idea what remote work was like. And a few did, but probably 90% of the people had no concept of this idea that you can actually work from home in professional environment. So the question I have for you is, when you started your business, BigBinary, what was it that inspired you to make it remote first work for all the people who work for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I accidentally got this experience of working remotely while actually not working remotely. So let me explain. So what was happening is that in just before a few years prior to that, I was working for a few government-sponsored agencies in DC area, and I was waiting for my green card. And the daytime work was not very fulfilling and not very challenging. So at the end of the day, I still had some mental energy, firepower. And I stumbled upon Ruby on Rails, the new framework, which was open sourced a few months/years ago. And I started participating in Ruby on Rails community, and what I saw is that all the discussions are happening over the email. People are sending one email, the other person is replying to it. It's all happening remotely and it's happening asynchronously. And the best part is that things are moving forward with a particular cadence. I won't say that it's moving at the fastest speed, but there was definitely a consistency, and that was pretty awesome. And all the discussions were quite thoughtful. All the comments were very well thought out. And then people were posting the comments. This was in a stark contrast to my daytime job, where, okay, let's get in a meeting. So we are in a meeting and it's hours and hours of meeting and things are not moving. So and then fast forward a few years and I got my green card and I thought that, okay, let's start a consultancy company. So the natural choice was that, I want to work in the environment where we have less meetings and we get work done. And so I try to hire people from the open source community so that these are the people who are already conditioned to this style of working. So that's how we set it up that, well, we are going to do the work for our clients. So the work is not open source, but other than the work itself, the code itself not being open source, we took all the ethos of open source community, which is a lot of remote work, a lot of asynchronous communication, mostly based on email. Later we switched over to GitHub. GitHub was not so when we started using GitHub, then we started switching to GitHub, using it. But pretty much that was the inspiration.
So there is two or three terms that you mentioned. I wanted to kind of just get into do a clarification of those terms, so we can get those out of the way so that our audience can kind of catch up on what those terms mean. One was Ruby on Rails framework. Second is, I believe you said GitHub. And the third is open source.
Correct.
So if you can give a quick one, if it's even possible, what Ruby on Rails is. Is it a language or a framework? I think you said it's a framework.
Correct.
So what is it and how is it different from other programming languages and other environments? A little bit, just a quick one.
Yeah, Ruby on Rails is a framework. It runs on Ruby, the programming language. There are other languages which people are much more familiar with, like Python or Java. So Ruby has its own niche, and Ruby on Rails is a framework designed for making web applications quickly. Like you can build it really fast and you can make it work. So that's Ruby on Rails. GitHub is, well, before GitHub we had CVS and SVN, where I have some code that I'm writing, and my team member, you are writing some code. Well, if our code is only on our laptop, and if laptop stops working, that's a problem. So the code needs to be at some central place, and that's why the name Git, and Git is over there, the technology, and Hub is it's just where you put the code. So that's GitHub. And what was the third one? Open source. Yeah. So when you write code, you can write two types of code. One is the code which is closed source, meaning that you have the access to the code. And then you can write code like, which is what, let's say, everything about Apple, everything what the code that runs on your phone. That's not open source. We don't know what that goes in. But Linux is an operating system, and which is open source. So there you can go and look at the code, and if needed, you can make necessary changes to it. So that's open source.
Sure. So open source and GitHub kind of go hand in hand, basically. So it's a repository of all the code that other people have written, and people are sharing their code with each other.
Correct.
So that it's kind of like a development environment for people who aspire or are plugged into this philosophy of open source, where you sort of sharing code for free.
Absolutely, exactly.
So
it's a community, and you are sharing the code, but the code needs to be somewhere. GitHub just happens to be one of the largest repository. There are other alternatives available, but GitHub is one of the most popular ones.
One of the things that you mentioned, I think that the inspiration for starting your business was, I think that it's the inefficiency of getting the work done that you observed. So you observed that there was a certain efficiency that comes into play when you're actually working. And so was that what you set out to do for your customers? What I'm kind of trying to get at is, who was your customer, and what problem, if there was any problem that you set out to solve, that was there? So what problem did you set out to solve for your audience, your potential customers?
Yeah, so the problem that I was trying to solve was mostly for myself more than the customer. And my problem was that because of the open source work, I had acquired quite a bit of knowledge of how Ruby on Rails actually works internally, and what is the right way to use it. And the fact that now I had a green card, that means that I can change jobs. And I did, looking for a place where I can actually do good work, and my CTO or my bosses, they have proper good knowledge about it. The problem was that Ruby on Rails was quite new. I mean, in all things taken, Ruby on Rails was still quite new. So lots of CTOs didn't know about Ruby on Rails, even though the company has decided to adopt Ruby on Rails. They didn't know much. And a few bosses who knew Ruby on Rails, they didn't know as much as I knew. And I saw that in a lot of cases, my advice was not being well taken. And and because of my groundwork, actually doing the contributions to Ruby on Rails itself, I knew that at least I had a strong conviction that I am right here. And in this case, the decision. Yeah. So I was just trying to solve my own problem, that if I become a freelancer, then what will happen is that the client will give me the work and I will write the code the way I want to write it, without the constraint of my boss looking at hey, this is the way to write the code. So that was the problem that I was trying to solve. And that's how I became a freelancer. The idea was never to start a company or to have the team. But once we started, then, the client was happy with it. They said, okay, we need to move faster. Can we add one more person? And I said, I don't have a team. Why don't you go and find the team? And they came back after 2 weeks saying that, I don't know. It's very hard to find Ruby on Rails people and I cannot interview them. Why don't you interview somebody and find somebody? And I said, okay, I'll find somebody. So I got one contractor anywhere in the world initially. It didn't matter. But then that's how, then one person was added, then second person. So slowly the team was added.
Sure. And that's how it grew from
there. Exactly. Basically.
One thing I really want to get into a little bit is that you mentioned that you didn't have a green card. So this is absolutely an important part of the ethos of the Indian immigration and other immigrant countries, folks coming from other countries into the USA, and they don't have a green card, so they feel a little bit trapped somehow, right? Because did you have an H1 at the time? Was it an H1 visa? So H1 visa, I think for our audience, is the visa where it's a work visa. So you come to the country on a work visa, and then green card is basically a step on the way to a full citizenship. So it's almost like a citizenship with the green card. So once you have that, then with the H1 visa, you're basically trapped into working for the company that sponsored you to bring you into the country. And then once you have your green card, you're free to seek employment elsewhere, just like any other citizen of the country.
Absolutely, exactly, absolutely. With the H1B, you feel a lot more constrained in terms of seeking both the employment and also starting a company. It's possible, but it's a bit, you need to go through some paperwork and it's a bit risky. So that's why a lot of people who are on H1B, they first try to get the green card and then only start a company or something like that. So it's definitely constraining. But I came to this country, so I have to abide by the rules, etc. And the rules could be frustrating at times, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And here you are. They say the opportunity is where the problems are, right? When you take a problem and when you flip that around and turn that around and turn it into an opportunity. So here you are, having built a successful company. So congratulations on that, by the way. So that's you have 125 plus employees around the world right now, and you've done quite well with having built the company that you built. So that's quite inspiring.
Thank you.
Who was the person that you had in mind in terms of who you would approach to bring the services that you thought that you can bring them once you had your green card?
Yeah. So Ruby on Rails, at that time, what was happening, because it was a new technology, if you move fast enough and you get people, then you had certain advantage, because still the number of companies who could actually fulfill the Ruby on Rails services, it's a very niche market at that time. It's not a lot. And second thing is the price differentiation. I mean, the people in the USA where I am living right now, if you have acquired the necessary skill of learning Ruby on Rails, then market is very wide open and you can be paid very handsomely. But it could also mean that on the flip side, the company who is trying to seek the service of Ruby on Rails, it is expensive for them. There is always, and there are benefits and there are advantages and disadvantages, but that's what the free market we work in. Like there are certain advantages of having remote workers. There are certain disadvantages of having remote workers. There are advantages
Absolutely.
of having people in India. Well, time zone difference and bunch of things, other things also come into the picture. But overall, I felt like important thing for me at that time was maintaining the quality of the engineers very high, because I like working with the good engineers, and it's very pleasant to work with them. So where can I get it at a price which can make it also appealing to the customers? And given that I am from India, people from India in general, they speak English decent enough. And so that's when I started looking for people who are from India and they are in India and they know Ruby on Rails.
Absolutely. Now, Ruby on Rails, if I'm not mistaken, I think Ruby on Rails at the time wasn't very popular and people hadn't heard about it. But now it's considered a pretty strong framework to develop soft code in. If I'm not mistaken, Twitter, X now, was actually developed on Ruby on Rails.
Yeah, Twitter was on there. Shopify today is on Ruby on Rails. GitHub today is on Ruby on Rails. Basecamp, a strong project management tool that is 100% on Ruby on Rails. Stripe uses Ruby on Rails among all other languages. Yeah. So a bunch of companies.
Right. Yeah. So you developed expertise in Ruby on Rails, basically. So that's your inroads into the market.
True.
Basically. True. And you approached companies where there is the Indian folks that you feel comfortable with, you approach them. Okay. And they also had some idea of the importance of Ruby on Rails. So one thing that I've found is that it's so important to have focus. And every entrepreneur that I speak to who have built successful companies, focus is very important. And you had this focus on Ruby on Rails, basically, and expertise in Ruby on Rails. And I think that's still your focus even today.
True. That is one of the...
With BigBinary.
That's one of the unique things about BigBinary is that most of the consulting companies, they diversify and they offer services in a lot of languages, especially the popular ones like Java, Python. A lot of companies diversify. And nothing wrong in that. Or let's say go into the other areas of data science and other things. We have not diversified, not because we don't like those languages, it's just that probably I like Ruby on Rails a bit too much. I love it, enjoying working on it, and I don't see any reason to walk away from it. And the other thing is that the longer we continue to work on Ruby on Rails, the more expertise we are building. So we work on Ruby on Rails. We have our own internal guides about how to work on Ruby on Rails, how to work on React, and then we write some blogs related to any of the technological related changes that we face, which is worth writing about. So overall, at this point of time, we have a strong brand name in the area of Ruby on Rails, and every single week that we are working more on Ruby on Rails, that just continues to enhance the brand.
Yeah, and React is another tool of set of tools to help development.
True.
Help the development process.
True. So React is a full stack with the Rails. Rails is full stack with the Rails. You can go all the way to view layer. But since React came, a lot of our, and this was purely from the market, we saw that the clients were asking for a lot of React and Ruby and Rails on the back end. So on the front end React and on the back end Rails. So we responded to the market and we embraced React. And at this point of time, I think the 80% of our clients, they use React on the front end and Rails on the back end. And that's exactly is also the technology stack we are using for our own internal product for Neeto also.
Yeah. And you've mentioned one more thing just for our audience here, that the all the way to the view level. I think what you're meaning is, so stack is basically the set of tools that you use that you stack on top of each other, and all the way to view means that if I have a browser here and there's an app that I am looking at, then I can. So it's not just backend. Backend is something that you do on the server side or on the back side of the application to make things work well on the back end, on the background. But then the viewing part is pulling the data and displaying it in a certain way. So React is that Is that what
No,
I,
no,
do I have
absolutely.
that right?
You're on the
So
spot.
it's a
100%. React is on the front end layer, meaning that that's what you
Front
see. Visualization,
Right.
anything that you see, anything that you interact with, that's on the React side. But when you click on a button and that we need to save that information, that will go to the backend and Rails will take it and will give it to the database that, hey, for this guy, save this information.
Perfect. Right. So having that in mind, now I'm assuming that most of your clientele is more enterprise, big companies. Is that correct?
Actually, it's the other way around. Most of our clients are like small businesses and startups. Partially because the enterprise companies have not still fully come around to embracing Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails still continues to be, I will say, is a niche area. Majority of the enterprise companies are still running on Java and C#.
Okay. All right. Which are other programming environments and development frameworks. Right. So why do you think the mid-sized companies are more of a target for you than the enterprise? And I think there's the technical issue of having legacy software, and they are kind of tied into that. Is there any other reason?
Yeah, the other reason is that the enterprise company, meaning that by nature they have more, I don't know, for the lack of better word, I will call it a red tape around working with the offshore team. They they need more people here in the USA in the same geographic region. They're also worried more about the time zone difference, and I mean they want to work with the bigger providers like approved vendors, like they might have TCS, Infosys, Wipro, and all those kind of companies. So enterprise companies, they just make it harder to work with the smaller companies. That's.
Absolutely.
But having said that, we have a few enterprise companies, but not too many.
When we work with companies, it's not just a shell that we work with. There is a person behind the company that we work with. Is there like a avatar or a profile of the customer that you typically work with?
Yeah, we want to work with the companies who want to get the work done. I mean, it might sound I don't know, bizarre, like who doesn't want to get the work done? But the reality is that there are a lot of companies, especially more of the enterprise companies, when you talk to them, the managers or the company culture is not very fast moving. We have worked with a few of them. And it was very frustrating because as fast as we move, they would not move. They will ask a lot of people to do some paperwork and somehow keeping it busy for filler work, which is not very fulfilling. And that becomes very counterproductive because we have hired engineers who like to do the work, in fact, good quality work. And now asking those engineers to not work, that creates problems. It's like, and there are cases where we have to say that there's less work, and hence we are like, okay, we are getting out of the project. And some might say that, what's your problem? Just enjoy. But the engineers that we have hired, they also understand that this enjoy or relax time, meaning that you're not doing quality work, you're doing somehow, and they don't like it. They need to watch out for. They want to keep doing good work so that they are good on their career path.
Absolutely, yes, and that is important.
Exactly,
that's important to you. Obviously, that's important to you as well.
Of course, We want to have the clients who push us to do good work, and there's one more advantage. One more example I can give you of the cultural fit. Like a couple of times we have gotten the clients where just because we are offshore team, they feel like, well, they practically own us in the sense that they can send the message anytime, off hours, anytime, Saturday, Sunday, anytime, and they expect instant reply. So then there are cases where we had to say we were not good fit in terms of cultural thing.
I applaud you for saying that, because I think it's very important to stick to your guns, and you build this culture of a company where you thrive on doing good work, as you say, and it's important to keep that culture, and it's important to keep that.
True, exactly,
spirit, basically.
And you can keep it only. Culture comes in the picture only when there is tough decision you need to make. If it's everything is easy and you're making it, then your culture is not being tested. I'll tell you example. Just 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we got a client. We started working with a client, and what happened is that client, they already have the existing team in India. They wanted a few engineers from our side just to give them a boost. But we found that they have a monitoring software that they want to monitor your laptop anytime you're using, and every 30 seconds, 1 minute, something like that, it will take a screenshot, all network activities, nothing. That's not how we work. We are 100% remote, but we don't monitor people. We don't monitor people's laptop. And that is not... And I want to be careful. I don't want to pass judgment on how others are running the business. I'm not saying that that is a bad way of doing the thing. That's your style of running it. There are certain things where I will say that that's not a good way. But this is not that. This is where you run your thing, but I don't like running it. And we requested the client, and there was some dilly-dallying and here and there, but then ultimately we decided not to work with the client.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks.
Basically, that on sticking to your guns. So your ideal client, then I'm assuming, is someone who is, I think you kind of profiled this a little bit. I think your ideal client is someone who wants to get things done. And someone who is somewhat educated on why Ruby on Rails is the right environment to develop the software in. They also can get around the red tape a little bit, and they can work with you almost like as a partner, and not just quote unquote outsource a process the way that they see that they should do it. So it's like more of like a partnership.
Exactly. I mean, we want to, and we like to work in the environment where it's not like we are getting the message from top down. Okay, this needs to be done, and we just deliver it. We want to work as a partner. In many cases, we give the feedback. For example, sometimes our clients might not realize that, okay, why don't you change this report this to this, or some permissions this to, and what to them it's like a just this to this. It is like a 2 weeks of work for us. And if we don't get the feedback and we don't stand up and say that, well, okay, we can do that if you want it, but here is the time. What we think that you are trying to get to is this, and here is an alternative way which will kind of get you what you want, and it can be done in a day or two. And that will save you 2 weeks of work. And so that kind of feedback we can give only if we are working with a client where we have this high trust environment. If you don't have a trust environment and we are being asked just to do whatever I say to you, we can do that. Right. And we have worked on the project, but in those projects usually don't very long for a variety of reasons. I think that all the projects which go for years and years with our clients, those are where we have a high trust environment where they benefit from our expertise, and we work with, and we see that, okay, and we are bringing technological value to them.
Right. There's a saying in some of the sales culture that the problem that the customer brings to you is never the real problem.
True. Good. Yeah.
So we need to, as professionals, we need to be able to get behind that problem and then take an initiative in fixing the real problem.
True.
So sometimes they'll say, okay, do this, and that, and do it the way that I'm telling you to do. An expert will find a way to say, your approach is valid, but it could be even better if we come and do it this way.
True.
And then that's when they see you as experts and professionals.
Correct.
And not just someone who is just going to do something. It's not just an outsourcing project.
Exactly.
Is there an example of an ideal project that you did where all these things that they're talking about, were the whole checklist of how it should be done were checked off?
Yeah.
And you don't have to mention the name of the client if you don't want to, but if you can.
Yeah, so I will not mention the client, but this is one of the interesting stories that comes to my mind is that this client emailed us saying that we are in their list of the companies they are evaluating, and these are the 13 questions that they need to answer. We need to answer. And I looked at the questions. The questions was quite broad in scope. There was quite ambiguous. So I replied saying that, well, thanks for selecting BigBinary as one of the companies, but can we get on a call because I have some questions, because based on that, I needed to give an estimate how much it will cost. And I cannot give an estimate unless we have some idea about what to say. And they said that, well, your question is valid, but we are very busy because we are giving the answer to everybody saying the same thing that, well, make your best guess. And I said that, well, I don't make the guesses because, well, you will stick to that number and then it will create a problem. So we will not be making the bid. Thank you very much and good luck with the project. So we just withdrew ourselves from the project. 3 months later, I got the email from the person again. He said, can we have a quick call? And I said, sure. We got on a call. And he, this time, inquired more about what BigBinary is and things like that, etc. Anyway, long story short, a month after that, we got the project. And what happened is that, and I said, how did we end up getting the project? He said, well, people gave they had like 13 vendors they selected. The 12 vendors, the estimate was varying a lot. And when they looked into it and they talked to the vendors, why they had no rhyme or reason. Basically, these numbers meant nothing. And they themselves said that because you didn't answer the question. But they said, well, you gave this estimate without asking that for the clarification. And the CEOs looked at, one company not applicable. Why? He said, because they refused to give the number without having a call. And he said, well, anyway, these guys are giving, which is, they don't stand for anything. At least this guy didn't say, why don't we talk to that person? So that's why we talked to them and we got the project. And that project lasted for close to 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. So it was supposed to be awesome. 2 months, 3 months, a small project, but they liked us enough to keep working with us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
So moving forward, do you have a vision of where your company is going in terms of revenues and growth? And we all look at those. We all look at the numbers and margins and all these things. But also in terms of the kinds of clients you want to have, the kind of culture that you want to build in the company, and any other things that are important to you.
Okay. So the thing that is the most important to me is sustainability. These days, you will see a lot of companies who are coming, new companies that come up. Startups are easy. What is harder is actually staying in the business. Yeah. So the number one goal is to be sustainable. And currently, or the last 12 months, you can say that technology is having a little bit of a cool down. A lot of layoffs and things like that. And anytime those kind of layoffs happen, the consulting companies like BigBinary is the first one to feel the brunt of it. Because, well, before you lay off your employees, you need to get rid of the contractors, right? And that's where. So, yeah. So that's, and it's not because of this cool down period. Always been my concern is more than the revenue, the growth and the numbers is that the things need to be sustainable. So that's first thing is sustainability. And second thing is that culture meaning that let's take on the project, which are the projects we want to do. Now that the situation is a bit tight because of the cool down, it doesn't mean that we are going to cheapen our value, because this is the time when your values will be tested. Because it's quite possible that we might take a project which are not 100% aligned with, and it will create a lot of heartache. I mean, it's a lot of trouble for you, unnecessarily mental anguish. So this is the time also when so that's exactly the reason why we started Neeto, because we started building our internal product because, well, we had a lot more people on our bench, and we had also hired some people from colleges who were freshers and all things combined, we had some engineering firepower available. So we started working on Neeto. So anytime we have some downtime available, people work on Neeto. And that has the dual advantage that this is the area where we can experiment. We can experiment new technology. We can experiment things. We can also see how the candidates or our employees, they are performing. If they need some kind of remedial, they are certain somebody is weaker on the front end, somebody is weaker on the back end, we can take care of that. Here they can practice and they get better at it, and until they get better at it, we won't move them to the consulting work. So overall, it works out as a good preparation ground, Neeto, for our engineers.
Sure. Yeah. It's a training ground for basically the dojo.
True.
The training ground.
Exactly.
For you.
Yeah.
And Neeto. So Neeto.com, is that? So what is that? Is that, I think it's a collection of software tools.
True.
And so if you can give us like a high level review of some of the tools that you have.
So Neeto has a bunch of tools. We are trying to build some of the most popular ones, or the one which are available for people to use. Our chat application, our desk for ticketing, and the calendar for NeetoCal for scheduling, Invoice for doing the invoice management and things like that. And finally, Neeto Record for doing this remote asynchronous communication that we talked about.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's
Absolutely.
what we have. And we are building more tools. But the main goal of Neeto in general is to keep the prices low.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. For the consumer of the product.
True, exactly. What we are noticing is that the SaaS products, I don't know, the prices are just keeps going up, and in spite of all the competition in the market, the price is not going down. So it doesn't mean that we will be able to actually make a dent in the market, but we don't know. At least, but we are trying to.
Yeah.
What we are trying to.
Right. Sure. Sounds to me like the prices are going up.
True.
Not
Exactly.
Not only they're not coming down, but they actually are going up. The SaaS model now, I think it's actually getting more and more expensive.
True.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Any
No. I mean, this is ridiculous. Recently, what was it Mercedes or BMW in the hot seat for actually literally for warming your seat, you needed a subscription of $23 a month. I mean, this is SaaS gone amok. I mean, this is just too much for every single thing.
Yeah.
And and everything.
So it's like it's a feature in the software where they can turn that on and off.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the airline industry where, for an extra baggage, now they're charging you extra money. So that they're bringing their whole model into the SaaS industry. So I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. I mean, the thing is that the SaaS is like, okay, it has its value, but every single thing is SaaS. You want to, let's say, I will give you an example. A friend of mine wanted to e-sign some document. He said that, hey, can you send me something? And I said, well, check out these things. Well, yeah, I checked out all of them are, it's not like, okay, for a document, sign and $5. No, everything is SaaS. See, that's exactly is the problem. Whatever happened to non-SaaS thing, okay, per document, I will charge you $5.
Right.
Then he would have kept his account open there forever. But now if you create the account open, maybe some of them offer first time some free one document or two documents. So that's good. But still, the whole point is that the SaaS is actually just, and so one thing is that your options are restricted, and second thing is pricing. The prices have gone up so much.
So Neeto is, I love that. By the way, I looked at some of the products that you have, and Neeto.com, Neeto. So a little plug for you here, Neeto.com. For the audience, please check it out. I love the design. I love the minimalist approach that you have there. You brought it all together really beautifully. The logo and the look and the feel, so it doesn't feel so overwhelming to have like 1,000 features right in front of you. It's really well done. The suite of products that you developed. So, and I'm a prospect for some of those.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
And we'll talk about that offline. Now, this is also a testing ground for your engineers to work on projects that you place them on, right? So for Ruby on Rails and other types of projects, the complex projects. So is there and one of the things I like to talk about is the culture of the organization that takes us there. So this is one of the things that you've done, which I think is a stroke of genius. You actually launched a product or a project or a suite of products to train your folks to develop this culture of having, so, you're getting them probably from fresh out of colleges and things like that, but they don't have any world experience. These are absolutely smart people, I'm sure, that you're hiring, but they don't have the real world experience, and you have to give them that experience. And you're doing that, you're basically saying, I'm doing that on my own dime. I'm not going to charge you for that. I'm going to put them on my own project, train them, before I give them to you and put them on your project.
Correct.
So that's one of the things that you've done. Are there any other things that you've done to build this culture of really extremely high value and the intelligence that you bring to your clients from this pool of highly intelligent people, but may or may not be very experienced people? Is there a kind of are there any systems that you developed, any strategies that you tried, or are there any innovations that you made other than Neeto, which I think is a big one?
Yeah, so what I would say is that the innovation is in the area of expecting a lot from the engineers, I will say. So compared to other companies, you will see that at Neeto, we have the engineers who are working in Neeto. They are in the beginning, they research on their own what features to add to the product, because we don't have product managers. So they research the product, they come up with some ideas, we discuss it, and we agree on something. Then they get to the design. Well, we have through high-level design needs to be done. After that, they actually implement it, the actual engineering and development work. After the development work, we...
that's huge. If I can stop you right there, that's huge. What you just said, we don't have product managers. You actually get them to come in and say, give me some ideas on what kinds of features that we can add to these products.
Correct.
So so that's one thing.
Yeah. So they work on the product, and we, first of all, unlike other companies, we don't have 5, 6, or 10 engineers working on each product. Has 2, maybe 3 in some cases, but 2 in some cases 1. The reason being that the smaller the number of people, there is a less communication overhead. There's less management overhead. 2 people are talking, on how long the meeting will last. There is less room for confusion. Okay, who is doing what? Less coordination activities, and they've figure out what feature to build, and they do the design, and then after that the real engineering, the development work, and then after that they will take it to production without the support of any QA person. That is one thing which is the unique characteristic of Neeto, in the sense that I want our engineers to be comfortable taking that particular feature to production without QA, without relying on anybody. You need to be comfortable. So then take it to production, QA, then they need to write, and before it actually goes to production, they need to write the help document for that. So this is the help doc, because, this is, who else would know? In other companies, there are people who write the help docs, etc. But here, they need to write the help doc along with the screenshots, etc. Like, I added a new feature. This is the document for it. Then they need to tweet the one and then take it to production. After the production, they need to go to Twitter and they need to write that, hey, this feature has been launched. Okay. And then that's still the work is not in. The last part is any customer support. They maintain the customer support. We don't have a customer support people. They maintain the customer support. And in some cases, they need to get on a call with the people in order to understand, because some people have bugs which are harder to understand. So we need to get on a call. And some people have some feature request, and when they post it on our chat, it's not entirely clear what feature they want, and it's better to have a call. So same engineers will get on a call. No project manager, no like a product manager, anything like that, and our engineers do the full round trip. By some standard, when I tell this thing to some of my friends, they say, well, you expect your engineers to do a lot, and that is true. We do expect our engineers to do a lot. On the flip side, to the engineers, I feel like they get an opportunity over here where they get to work on the product from end to end, which is not at many places they can do today. Right. So they have a huge sense of satisfaction in terms of actually deliver something to the world from end to end. They were in charge.
Yeah. I absolutely love their approach, because one of the issues that we've always had, one of the problems that we've always had in engineering, software, technology designs is that the technical guy or gal doesn't really understand the customer.
Correct.
Or what. So they love their techie stuff. I'm a techie, by the way, so I'm a recurring techie. But they don't have an appreciation for the other side of where it gets used. Correct. And how it gets used, and the delight of the customer, the usability and the UI and the UX, the user experience and the user interface. So having that perspective is so important, especially from people who are already, people are basically probably not very experienced. So you're actually training them right off the bat to be a full life cycle, and not just life cycle of the product, but the life cycle of the whole product from the inception.
Correct, exactly.
From the user requirement, from the needs, all the way to customer support, and then staying involved in the tweaking of that.
Exactly. And not only that, we include them in our marketing thing also. So what I expect is that initially when you join, you are a software engineer. That is fine. But very soon, very fast, we expect you to be product engineer. So what's the difference between product and this? The product means that now you know that your engineering work, which is the main work for which you have been hired initially, now your roles and responsibilities are shifting. Product means that besides the engineering, there is also help document. There is also clear-cut instructions. The ability to think that, okay, good UX, like, okay, this is the place where the help icon is needed. Is the copy, like you said the word this, but it's, can you tweak? Can you find a better word which will explain it to the person? So that's now you're transitioning yourself from software engineer to product engineer. So that's great. But after some time, we expect them to from product engineer, so what call it a business engineer. What business engineer means that it's just all metaphorically, but it's to help you with your mental model. Just because now we have a software or a product, that doesn't mean that we have a business. Remember, I'm all about the sustainable business. Business means that revenue has to be more than expenses. That's it. It doesn't matter how much you raise money. It doesn't matter how much is your revenue. It doesn't matter. What matters is your revenue more than expenses. And between the revenue and the expenses, these are the only two things which you need to keep an eye on. Between these two, moving revenue, you have less control over revenue. Because revenue is a factor of economic environment, interest rate, bunch of things. But cost is something that you have a lot more control over. This is the reason why we are very cognizant of the cost, and we try to hire only as the last resort. That's why we don't have product managers. We try to have lesser number of UX engineers, lesser number of UI engineers. We have only 2 engineers per product because we want the cost of the product to be low, so that even a little bit of revenue will make us profitable.
Absolutely, right. Now, on the flip side, it seems to me like you're actually training them to be a full-fledged entrepreneur.
Absolutely, so absolutely. 100%, you got it. I didn't say that, but that's exactly.
So they can basically stay with you for a few years.
A
couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, get trained and launch their own company.
Absolutely. I will say on that point is that I say that I don't look at, but metaphorically, I would like to see a data that a lot of companies that have started, say, in the Silicon Valley or anywhere, which company in the three years prior to that, which company they worked in. The reason why I'm saying is that when you're leaving this company and you are taking another traditional job, nothing wrong in that. But if more and more people are coming out of your company and doing this entrepreneurial thing, then I will think that this company has more entrepreneurial spirit. Because if the company is hiring the kind of people who don't have that, and then the culture is such that you're not encouraging them, you're encouraging them more to be the traditional people, then, well, nothing wrong in that, but that's just it's a good way, or it's a proxy for what the culture of your company is.
Yeah. I absolutely love that idea. What you're saying is that I don't want to just create another employee. Nothing wrong with being an employee, but I want to create entrepreneurs.
True.
So you are building in this culture of being an entrepreneur in the fabric of the company, in the DNA of the company.
Correct.
So you don't just have software engineers, you have entrepreneurs.
Yeah, hopefully. And not only just entrepreneurs who have been trained to keep an eye on the cost. Because I keep talking about the cost. So probably an entrepreneur who's more likely to succeed than, the ones which are available in the market. Because they are, if you go to the market, then the common wisdom is that, just do a lot of marketing, just raise a lot of money because you need to move fast. And here, not necessarily, I'm not less of a move fast, because if you move really fast, then you have to move at a high speed. But if you're running at a high speed, after 100 meters or 200 meters, you are going to get tired. So that's why I'm not necessarily, in the whole discussion, rarely, probably not even once I would have mentioned the speed and of you need to build things. More thing is sustainable. So it's a marathon. Building a business is a marathon. So you need to pace yourself. I love
that view.
Sustainable. Make sure that you have plenty of water, you have your energy bar, because it's a long road ahead.
I'm assuming that you are basically you are self-funded in terms of you funding yourself from the revenues of the company and the profitability that you put back into the company. You're not funded by venture capitalists.
Before I answer the question, there are certain people who are very anti-VC. I'm not one of those people. I'm not anti-VC. But I do have to say that the current climate environment is people jump for VC funding too early. That's definitely, I feel like, I feel like
I agree.
in my view, VC funding is good for when you have struggled a bit, get some prototype or something running, and now you need to scale. If before you are struggling and you get the funding, or at least too much funding, then innovation doesn't happen, because innovation comes in the struggle. Because in that struggle, you will build something which the incumbents who have billions-dollar valuation, they are not going to do that, because, well, they are solving a different problem, right? So having said that, yes, we are currently self-funded, meaning that the money that is coming from BigBinary, the consulting company, that is funding the work on Neeto. That is true. Yeah.
Coming back to the culture of the organization, what's your proudest achievement in having built the culture that you built? I think you kind of alluded to this, but if you can kind of...
Yeah, so I will say that the proudest, there's no one thing that stands out, but there are cases where I will highlight. Like in one particular case, I was talking to a person, and the person said that in our company, if you are taking a PTO, you have a personal time off for any reason, you don't have to apply for the PTO. You just inform the client or whoever is the requisite parties. You need to inform everybody that, okay, I woke up, whatever, I am fever, I am sick, that's it. You don't, and just one message, and that's it, you're done. You can go back to recovery or whatever for things. And the person said that, well, in the previous company, the person will have to do so many, fill out the form, talk to the HR, then senior HR. Sure. It takes 2-3 hours, and you are sick. So I thought that, well, that was pretty good. And in one case that also stands out to me is that I was in India, and one guy had taken a lot of effort, his house is really far off, had come, and he came bearing gift, and the thing is that I had terminated this person 6 months ago from the company, but the person was actually, he felt that he had obviously worked at previous companies. He said that in spite of his non-performance, and he just terminated because performance was not that good, he learned a lot. So I thought that was a very I don't know how to say, it was a very touching moment that, well, here is the person but the person learned it enough and cared enough that to come to a great distance, and
that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Someone who that you had let go because the performance wasn't up to par came to you bearing gifts.
True.
And said thank you.
Yeah, that was very, very humbling moment.
It's always the human moments. I'm getting goosebumps. It's always the human moments that are the important moments, right?
True.
In building businesses and in being an entrepreneur and doing what we do. The entrepreneurial journey is not always. It's not always. It's fun, almost always fun. There's a lot of drama and things like that. But it's never the walk in the park that we think it is, right? Sure. It looks sexy and glamorous from the outside looking in. But for the guy who is living from the inside out, it's not always the moonlight and roses, right? Sure. Has there ever been a moment or a series of moments or a long period of time when you thought that, my God, what did I get myself into? This is not, I'm done. We call it often in America, in the Western culture, there is this idea of the dark night of the soul kind of a moment, where you come face to face with some of your biggest fears and things like that. So was there ever such a moment in your journey of building this business?
I'm very fortunate to say that not even once, not even close. Because when I talk to my friends, what happened, and I've been thinking about what could be the reason. One of the reasons could be that I see that a lot of my friends who have started other companies, along the way, they feel, in my judgment, they make a lot more compromises than they want to. So what happens is that over the period of time, they start in a way detaching themselves from the company. They don't like it because they have made some compromises in terms of hiring. Like, for example, let's say I can give an example, the 3 people, co-founder. So now co-founders, they're great. And I'm not saying that the co-founders are not good, but then, well, what can you do? You don't like doing this, you don't want company to go in that direction, but this guy is saying that, and he's a co-founder, so you will do certain hire from marketing, and so this guy has a much more like my style, keep the cost low, and this person is hiring executives or ex Instagram people. So those people are coming with a different kind of, or people from Salesforce. But these are the VPs of Salesforce. They are costing a lot of money on your payroll, and they have a different style of working, because Salesforce, you have, they travel a lot and the fancy things, and they want to have much different way the company should be growing, and they are much more bombastic. So you're taking more risk. Well, the plus side is that, well, it might pay off, but it might not. And so depending on, because of all these compromises, what happens is that you say that, okay, next company I will win. That's why I feel like that's why a lot of people are in a rush to make, I'm 3x founder, 4x founder. I will die as a 1x founder. There is no doubt about it. I am not in a hurry to sell BigBinary or to get rid of BigBinary, because I wonder if BigBinary is not there, what will I do? So I will stay with it. And
absolutely love that.
So because I don't make compromises on things, and I'm not saying that I'm a difficult person to work with, but there are some core principles on which I don't compromise at all. Then what happens is that every day, in fact, now that the BigBinary is on 13th year, it will be cliche, but actually it's not cliche. I'm more excited about BigBinary today than I was ever in its history. With the Neeto, BigBinary Academy, and other things going on, a lot of things are going on, and I'm very fortunate to say that I didn't have those, and not even once I had the dark moment. And second thing I feel like is that I lived that life. It's like if I'm not running or working here, then if I work for somebody else, I did that when I was waiting for the green card, and even after the green card. So it's not like I need to go somewhere and imagine. I didn't like that. It's like I feel like my best work is when I am working without those constraints.
So in the hindsight, the dark night of the soul moment, if you ever want to basically go look for it really hard, it would be when you were on the H-1B visa.
Of course, exactly.
And you couldn't get out.
Actually, H-1B visa. Actually, H-1B visa was satisfying in the sense that, okay, I love this country and this country's rules are there. I'm there. The worst thing was when after H-1, I have a green card. I have the knowledge. What else do I need? I'm one of the luckiest people in the world that I have this knowledge of Ruby. I'm contributing to Ruby Rails, so I know Ruby on Rails. I'm going to the meetups and talking to people and I'm making presentations. So I have the knowledge. And now I also have the green card. But when any company I'm working and I'm changing my company and I'm not liking any of these companies, that was like, what is happening here? It's like that was very, 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 very. So in fact, one particular case, what happened is that I just changed the job. The new guy had yelled at me so much and in such a way that while driving back home, I had called my wife and I was actually crying. And she said that, well, this is like, okay. And I said, well, okay, then leave the job. And I said, well, first of all, I just joined this company. And secondly, what's the guarantee that next company is not going to be like that?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's when I thought that, okay, we need to, let's be a freelancer, at least in this way. And the goal was never to start a company. Goal was always to be a freelancer. And then we hired 1 person and 2 person and 3 person. And later we formed the company because of legal protection and things like that.
Oh, yeah. And here you are.
Yeah.
So, I love the story. I love that story of you calling your wife and in tears and said, what's going on here?
Exactly.
And, I think we all have to hit that moment. And I've found that there, almost all of us, and that's almost always a blessing in the hindsight, that you hit that moment when you think that something is not right and I need to get it right.
True. Exactly. Yep.
So you said core principles, and if you can list out, maybe you have this idea of core principles, and I will not negotiate them. So what are your non-negotiables? If you were to give me 1, 2, 3, 5, however many you can come up with.
Yeah, so first by far is that anybody who is dealing in the professional environment have some basic professional courtesy. Like, for example, I get a lot of emails for things. If barring the spam and all, which are obvious mass email, otherwise I reply to them, show up on the time, say the thing. If you're not able to show up, just say that that you are not able to make it, things like that. I get leads from other people. By the way, in the history of BigBinary, I've never like a solicited work from somebody, or like a cold email. I've not done it. So all the leads are incoming. When the leads come, I reply, and then, okay, you're silent.
Ghosting.
Dude,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, I didn't ask you. You sent me and this thing. So that same thing happens, like working with our BigBinary team members. That, well, if you say that you will show up at this time, then show up at that time. If you're not able to show up, then so basic professional courtesy is absolutely needed. And the people who don't have it, then that's very it's a huge red flag. The second thing is that the morality. If you don't know Java, you don't know Python, you don't know GraphQL, React, okay, I can help you in learning, I can teach you. Morality is very, very hard to teach. It's very, you need to, and so if morally you say things and you don't want, like you're not intending to keep up, or you inflate the numbers, those things. So those things are like those people I try to stay away from, because the thing is that the more you associate with the people, those people, they will rub on you. In fact, there had been a social experiment in which what happened is that the group of the company, the 2 new employees were added, but they were actually doing a social experiment. And these people would go out for lunch, and these people always order more food than they can eat, and they will have all the desserts and whatnot. And they will say, oh, why don't you share? In all the experiments that have been done, 6 months later, you will see average weight of the people have gone up. Because what happens, this guy is offering you food sometimes. So sometimes you'll say yes, sometimes you'll say no. But so be careful, like who you hang out with, who you keep company with,
because they're going to rub off on you.
They will rub off on you.
Funny thing.
Exactly.
And if you notice this, it's always a quote unquote a guy with high standards is hanging out with a guy with low standards. It's the first guy is gonna be like the second guy. It's never. It doesn't rub off the other way. It's like the good guy doesn't influence the guy with the bad habits.
They do,
it's always the other way.
They do, but it's very hard. It's very, very hard that you gravitate towards it. And those people you gravitate towards it by, you don't have to actually be working with them, by just like might be following your friends or somebody who inspires you on Twitter, LinkedIn, or reading their books or the newsletters and things like that. So your heroes might not, you don't have to necessarily work with you. You need to be working with you. But so so similarly, I want to make sure that we have the team members who are morally strong. If you don't, and obviously I have to lead from the example that, well, so if one hanky panky I do here and there, okay, let's tell this client this, then what the people are signaling, they're getting the signal that, okay, it's okay to fudge the number just a little bit. And the problem with fudging the number just a little bit is that, for me, the biggest worry is if I tell this, that when we are telling the client, let's fudge the number, when I ask you for the number, something internally, how do I know that you're not fudging it? Because I have trained you in fudging the number, right?
Yes.
So it's that is absolutely not acceptable. And other than that, I don't think that I have very core principle. But you need to love your life,
are huge.
And work, and just be a good human being. That's enough.
Yeah, I've heard this being said somewhere. I don't know who has said it, but the idea there is that the reason why we have morality is because these are the things that have been tried and tested for thousands of years of human history. And from that, we have to basically always speak the truth. The reason why it's a good principle to follow is because it's just a good strategy, right? It's just a good strategy. It works for everyone. And
exactly. It protects you, because half the time, unless you have some like an abject poverty you're living in, then the stress, you don't want to bring it on you. And not telling the truth, unless you're like a psycho, only you will carry the weight. And that's why we call them psychological. They have a problem, because why do we say that? Because you can tell a lie and you're fine. Majority of the people are not like that. You are carrying the weight. So best way is don't carry the weight. Just tell the truth.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. One of the things that I like to talk about a little bit, especially today in 2024, is this idea that, and you are in the smack dab in the middle of this whole thing that's happening with the generative AI. And our podcast is based on this idea that humanness will always be important. Humanness has always been important. It is right now important, and it will always be important. So seeing people as human beings is extraordinarily important, right? Now, having said that, it's like a monkey wrench has been thrown into this whole productivity thing.
True.
And the world of coding, basically, someone said the other day, I think someone on the podcast, that Sam Altman has said that 40% of the ChatGPT users use it for writing code. What's your take on that? And do you agree with that or not? And what do you think this whole thing is going to do to the industry? The ChatGPT being able to write code, and ChatGPT is one example. There is several of them now, lots of models. So, what do you think? Where do you think we're going with this?
Well, the first thing is that nobody knows. Even I don't know, but I'll take a stab at it.
We won't hold you for your prediction
Okay.
if you end up making a prediction.
Okay, thank you, Bhavesh. So it's a very new thing. We are in uncharted territory. It depends on the kind of the work you are doing, that how much of the work can be done by ChatGPT today. Maybe for certain segments of the techie people, 40% of the code is being written by ChatGPT. We at BigBinary, the kind of work that we are doing, we are seeing nowhere close to that result, not even 10%. We are not able to do that. Maybe it's the nature of the work that we are doing. Maybe it's the nature of the work that ChatGPT is initially emphasizing. They have not optimized for it. But in future, it's quite possible that the code can be, ChatGPT can write the code. It's to some extent possible. And there's nothing wrong in that. That's how, I don't know, we have built a modern society, which is good for everybody. But having said that, do I feel that AI is hyped a little bit more than what it will deliver in the future? I feel like we are in a bit of a bubble, not as bubble as .com bubble, where, okay, pets.com, whatever. I mean, you are basically running in loss and your valuation is in billions. So that was much. ChatGPT has definitely delivered something. It can produce beautiful videos. It was fantastic within seconds. And it can write some songs. It can do some coding, good alternatives and things like that. So definitely, but it also speaks for the psyche of the VC monies, etc. Like all the funding, too much money is going to the AI, and only a few winners will come out. One downside of this AI is definitely that big techs are going to be the winner. Unlike when the internet came, what happened? It democratized the whole thing. Like, okay, and you can have a website. Anybody can compete with CNN. Anybody can compete with New York Times. You can write your own blog, and that is popular than New York Times, and that's fine. In the case of all the AI thing, because the processing cost is so much, only the big companies can do this. They can really build and sustain their own LLMs, and common people, we can just make a call to their LLM. So which means that over the period of time, they will keep collecting more and more data, and they will keep getting better. But who is getting better is the big tech, which is getting better. So as a society, we definitely have to solve this problem. Society is not going to be a better society tomorrow if all the advancement is in the hands of a few corporations.
Yes. I tend to agree with you on that, because I think it's concerning, because big techs you're right, they can design, they can define the parameters of the argument. I can go on. This can be a whole new podcast, just you and me talking about this. But they define the way that we talk, the way that we work, and there's lots of psychological. We talked about DNA of the organization, and we talked about culture. They are setting the cultural blueprint of the society. And that could be a good thing, or that may not be a good thing. For example, one good example is a bit of an annoyance. Microsoft, if you go on their PowerPoint, and if you basically are looking for a picture or an image, and if you're looking for something that's like, give me a someone who is feeling anxiety, or it'll be very difficult to find that person. What they will give you is someone who is feeling very happy. So there is this idea of toxic positivity, where you always have to be positive. Now, that's not reality, right?
That's not
we all go through certain things. So that's just an example of how you can. So then this culture develops, where you never talk about something that's bothering you.
Exactly.
And that's not healthy.
That's not.
So then that creates toxicity. I tend to agree with you on that. I think human intelligence, human wisdom, human touch will always be the most important thing, because we are all humans and we're having a human experience here.
Exactly. Since you're talking about the human thing, this is the reason why I personally am not looking forward to this Apple Vision Pro thing, because that makes you look like an alien. I mean, I know it's solving the problem, but I don't look forward to a world where a lot of problems are solved and we are all walking around and I can't even see your eyes. Eyes is the single most important, not single most, but it's one of the most important things when we meet people.
It's the window to your soul, as they say.
As they say, exactly. And now your eyes are covered. And I don't want, the whole point of human interaction is that I can see you. Majority of the people you see, you don't even touch. You touch when you look at your own life. In the last 1 month, how many people you have touched. Then that's only your close, friends, relatives, your family members, things like that. So, but majority of the people, you see the eye contact.
Yes.
You see it. And that part is like a blocked. I'm not looking forward to that world.
If there was someone who was starting a business, it could be one of the folks who work for you within your organization, or someone outside, someone who is an aspiring entrepreneur. What would be your number one advice to that person?
The same thing that the way I have been running is same thing, like try to be sustainable. It's very easy to build a business. Startups have become much easier to do the startup, but 6 months from now, 6 years from now, will you be around?
Yeah.
So sustainability.
Yes. And on the back end of that, there is tons of advice for the entrepreneur, right? Someone who doesn't have a business, who wants to start a business. There's tons of press, what they call management press, for big companies. Management, if you're working in a hierarchy within a big corporation, things like this, lots of advice. But then there is this midsection, companies that are maybe about 5, 10, they're successful. They have the revenue, they have the traction, they have a good product. People love it, communities dazzle, all of these things. So things are happening for them. But they still have not reached this point of having a 500 employee companies where they can step away from the business. So the business still depends on the leadership, the charismatic leadership, as I call it, of the founder, of the owner. What would be, so if someone is in that kind of a place, what would be your advice to this person? What are the kinds of things that person you think should do to make the company independent of that person and the person independent of the company? Or is there such a thing?
Yeah, that's a hard question. No, there is definitely such a thing. In fact, a good company is a company where the company has low risk. And if the company has a lot of, and it's a risk to the company that the company is so much dependent on the charisma of a particular company, of a particular person. So definitely there, but it's depending on the product or depending on the work that you're doing, it could be a really hard, it could be a hard job. And in the beginning stages, it's much harder if you are a 5, 10, 15, 20% company, because what's happening in the beginning, you have so much outside influence in terms of what the company is doing. If the company is beyond certain limit, like let's say 50 plus 60, there has to be naturally a structure to the thing. Otherwise, because I cannot manage 100 people on a day-to-day basis.
Of course not.
So there is a certain structure to it. So if I were to take a vacation for a week or two, of course, from my point of view, okay, I'm missing out the things and there are something. You will always be able to contribute on it. But I don't feel like the whole edifice will collapse. But for a 10, 15, 20% company, it's possible that without you, things will fall apart. Because there is no reason for you to, it's such a small team, you can just manage everything, right? So you haven't put the structure. And I think that's okay in the sense that company has, that's okay. I think it's a 20% company.
So maybe putting some structure underneath the company.
But I think the structure but unnecessarily putting the structure, you will be forced to put the structure if the company has more people. And I feel like there are very few companies which are so wildly successful and still they don't need to grow. That is the case only for something like hedge funds and all that, because they are playing with their minds, etc. If you're, I'm in the tech space, people need to code in order to, that's how you add features and things like that, and customer support and all this field. So your team will grow if you're building anything which is or slightly popular, profitable, you will grow the number beyond 50 very soon. And beyond 50, it will force you to have a structure.
Sure. And on a personal level, what do you do for fun?
I watch tennis. I mean, that's the thing. I go for running, and I do exercises, and I don't know, just killing time with my kids.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the best part.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you have your children. They're home.
Yeah, so I have two
They're at
kids,
college.
and so they are home. They will be going to college next year. So I have a limited time, so I'm trying to make the best of it. Yeah.
Enjoy it, man. That's the best thing ever, and
Yeah,
it looks like you're doing it. I think this is a great conversation. I think we touched on a lot of things. I learned a lot from you, and there is, I think, a lot to learn for people who want to build the kind of company that you built. And so, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and it was fun talking about all these things. It had been a while since I talked about them. So yeah, it was. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great fun.